Hello, this is Scott Baceno of Telecoms.com, and I'm here at Mobile World Congress 2022, and I'm talking to Howard Stevens, who's the CEO of TOMIA. So Howard, why don't you just start by giving us a sort of snapshot of what you've been talking about, thinking about at the show?
Yeah, sure, Scott, and nice to be with you today. Well, there's two main things to start with. Firstly, actually getting back together.
Certainly.
And being with human beings and being able to see old colleagues and meet new colleagues and not being on Zoom calls permanently, which is a fantastic technology, but you need to be doing more than just Zoom to build relationships. And secondly, I think actually just returning to normal just as human beings. So getting together, COVID safe as best we can be, but getting together. And once we've got through that, of course, we're talking around the main themes in the industry, which from our perspective, as it is many others, it's the Internet of Things, it's 5G, and it's the continued growth of A2P SMS messaging. So those are the main themes we're having conversations with people on.
Okay, well, let's sort of tap into those a little bit. In the context of your company, what are you talking about firstly to do with 5G?
Well, 5G, I mean, ultimately, 5G and IoT from our point of view go a little bit of hand in hand.
Right, yeah.
So the conversations in the short term tend to be more around IoT. And IoT is interesting because for many, many years there's been an assumption that IoT was going to be the next big thing, and it never quite was. But we're finally starting to see that come to fruition. We've got one of the strange things that's come out of COVID, of course, is that we're not getting on aircraft anymore. We weren't. And then operators are looking at their networks and looking at the SIMs moving around their network, saying, well, if this isn't people, who is it? And people and customers were finding there were many, many millions of machines therefore walking around their networks, and it became clear that the Internet of Things was actually starting to build quite significantly. So we've been working with our key customers, taking them down a journey of saying, well, first off, look, we need to understand, are these machines or are they not machines? How do we do that? How do we figure that out? And then once we've done that, going through a process of being able to rate those devices and understanding them. And then how do you monetize them? How do you actually go to your operator counterparts and say, look, I've got a lot of machines in my network coming from your network. We need to figure out a commercial arrangement on this. A lot of our key customer carriers are actually using the IoT, of course, as a way of pulling in new enterprise customers or increasing the value from their existing customers. And it's the guys that have really grasped that are the ones that are sending all these devices. And other operators that perhaps aren't quite so strong on the enterprise side are kind of receiving them all. So there's this natural imbalance going on, and we're working with all these parties to try to commercialize all of this in a fair way so that everyone starts to make some revenue out of it. But we're really seeing that pick up. In fact, recently we did some discovery work with a major carrier where of roaming SIMs, out of every eight roaming SIMs, 7 of them were machines. So that'll start the balance will start to get back together again as we get on planes, as we are here traveling, but there's still a very, very big push on the IoT side. And I think 5G then just accelerates that. So we're seeing proof of concepts for roaming 5G. We're doing several of those currently. All are going quite well. I think we'll start to see 5G becoming material at the end of the year. Prior to that, we're seeing VoLTE. VoLTE is kicking off in a big way to enable people to have voice conversations on the 5G networks. And all of that's going to super accelerate the Internet of Things because it opens up a whole new world of use cases. So all of this stuff kind of comes together, but it's really beginning to build as IoT truly comes to the fore.
Well, yeah, that all rings true, and I've certainly plenty of times over the years written stories sort of lamenting that IoT hasn't lived up to the hype. But, you know, a lot of what you say about basically the way in which you monetize it just end up being a lot more complicated than people originally thought. It's not just about selling subscriptions to a bunch of sensors. It just doesn't seem to add up. So yeah, everything you've said really makes sense. So then just to finish off, another thing you touched on initially was you were talking about A2P messaging. Perhaps you just elaborate a little bit more on that, why that's something you're talking about, what your company's role is in that.
Yeah, well, SMS still remains the most trusted mechanism from businesses to people. Despite all the other technologies we have available to us, SMS is still the thing that people trust the most. So despite over recent years people think the technology is going to go away, it actually hasn't, and it's remained very, very strong. Operators and enterprises have traditionally connected through aggregators, so someone sitting in the middle of that system and actually taking up a lot of the value and controlling the relationships. As that's continued though to go from strength to strength, particularly the operators have decided actually, or are thinking of deciding, that I need to get more of that interaction with the enterprises directly and own the relationship and take a bit more of that revenue stream. So we're very, very strong in the operator community from a voice perspective. We have a long heritage in that. SMS is another side to that, and we've been working increasingly with some of our larger operator customers to strengthen their SMS coverage and allow them to go direct and perhaps not so much through the aggregators. And that's beginning to increase. So we're seeing more and more operators globally saying, I want to own more of that enterprise relationship through the SMS vehicle channel.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you very much.
That's all right, thank you.